now, if you don't mind.
Oh boy, Skryim, a game that's been around for almost a decade by the time of this recording. Skryim is seen as the golden child by Bethesda because of how successful it was and how much attention it received, as well as the numerous re-releases that it had. I remember playing it for the first time, and I had hours of mindless fun with it, not really taking notice to any of its flaws or even what made it fun in the first place. I just liked playing it. I was a kid then, but now I'm an adult that's taken a liking to what makes a game works, to its story, art direction, characters, etc. After a bit of thought, I decided to go back to Skryim again, since I've been hearing plenty of people not taking kindly to how the game is designed overall, and I want to talk about it for myself. Given all that I remember about the game, I'm probably going to be at this for a while, so strap yourselves in for an incredibly long ride of me hopefully not losing my fucking mind. This is The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, released on November the 11th, 2011. And we start as a prisoner on some cart that's going somewhere.
I don't know where we're going, but Sovngarde awaits.
No, this can't be happening. This isn't happening.
Hey.
Who was in this cart? A bunch of people who have something to do with the Stormcloak Rebellion currently raging through Skyrim, including their leader Ulfric Stormcloak, and some random guy that stole a horse. The player's character apparently got caught in an ambush between Imperials and Stormcloaks while crossing the border, or some fucking border, I guess. Okay, that doesn't make any sense to warrant an execution, but okay, Todd. You reach a town named Helgen, and the blonde dude really doesn't like this General Tullius guy because the Imperials are bad, and something about the Thalmorn elves. We finally get to our destination, the chopping block. The prisoners get off the carts, and we finally get to make our character. I'll definitely say that I don't care much for the character creator in these games. I kinda just whiz past it really quick and just pick my race and move on. However, I'll definitely say that there are plenty of choices to go around and messing around with the body and face and all the races that you can choose. So, regardless, it's a whatever for me. I chose to play as the Redguard, though. My character's name? That's a bit of a tough one. Let me think of something. Yeah, fucking genius. Oh yeah, apparently it's stated that your character isn't even on their list of people that are being executed, and you're going to be executed anyways. Amazing, I already fucking hate the Empire. During the execution session, some weird sounds are coming from the sky, but it's dismissed as nothing. And when it's your character's turn to have his fucking head chopped off, suddenly a dragon that summons rocks from the fucking sky comes in and saves your ass at the last second. How convenient. So you start running around the town amidst the chaos, some oh no close encounters with a dragon, and you get the choice of going into the keep with the Imperial asshole who keeps calling you a prisoner, or the Chad blonde dude. I went with the Chad, of course, who happens to be called Ralof, and you get to make a dead guy naked by taking his shit. Then you get to kill the one bitch at the execution session and take her shit as well. My weapon of choice was the war axe, of course, because I'm a big fan of those. You run through the keep killing Imperials, taking their shit, picking locks, and oh my god, Ralof, I am personally offended by what you're doing here. You're then given the choice to sneak around a bear or kill it, and I chose to sneak past since I remembered that I always killed it before. And then, you finally get out of the caves out into the open wilderness of Skyrim while the dragon flies away overhead. After the dragon flies away, I decide to follow Ralof to the town of Riverwood, and on the way there we come across what's called the Guardian Stones, which grants the player an additional perk, though you can only choose one stone. There are 3 here, but there are plenty more around Skyrim that you can also find. I'll stick with the Warrior Stone for now since I've been using the axe a lot. We get to Riverwood and we talk to Ralof's sister Gerdur about what happened at Helgen, and she tells me to get the Jarl of Whiterun to send some help to Riverwood as it is defenseless against a dragon. Before I do anything though, I sold a lot of the junk that I looted at Helgen and went to work at the forge to make myself some neat leather armor. That is the thing to note, that it is so much better to make your own stuff and improve it rather than just finding good items at random in dungeons. If it wasn't for the fact that I had the game at expert difficulty, the game would be way too fucking easy if it was at adept at default. But since I put it at expert, I think the better armor is definitely needed.
Show those thieves not to steal from Luke and Valerius.
I also talked to the Riverwood trader who unfortunately had a prized possession stolen from him, a golden claw. They think that the thieves went to the Nordic ruin of Bleak Falls of Verun. They think that the... They think that the thieves went to the Nordic ruin of Bleak Falls Barrow not too far from town, so I go there to get the claw back. Wait, what the fuck is this? It's a Nordic ruin counter, and I wonder what that could be there for. I kill a bunch of bandits, then venture further into the ruin and come across a very difficult puzzle that held my mind for 20 minutes. Yeah, this fucking sucks. Just look at the symbols up top and the one that fell off and then match them up. Boo. I then came across a very big boy and free this one dude who tells me that there are riches to be found further in the ruin. I set him free, but he runs off like a fucking asshole and doesn't want to share the spoils.
You fool. Why should I share the treasure with anyone?
We run into a bunch of undead Draugr boys, and the guy that I freed decides to kill himself like a dumbass. How the fuck do you do that? I fight some more Draugrs until I get to this door that can be opened with the claw. Again, just match up the symbols on the claw to the door and you get into this large area where you can acquire your first shout. More on that later. You then fight this tough overlord and you steal his dragonstone for another quest that'll come up soon. I go back to Riverwood and give the guy his claw back.
You found it! There it is! Strange. It seems smaller than I remember. Funny thing, huh? I'm gonna put this back where it belongs. I'll never forget this. You've done a great thing for me and my sister.
It means so much to us to have the claw back where it belongs. Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking care of those thieves. The Riverwood Trader is back to the way it used to be.
It's a fine day with you around.
Till next time.
Now off to Whiterun to talk to the Jarl. On the way there, I come across some Imperials and a Stormcloak prisoner.
I'm warning you. Your presence is interfering with Imperial business. Be gone!
I get to the gates of the city, and a guard decides to be an asshole, and the game really starts to show how dumb its speech system is, as well as its dialogue. You could pick the first option and go through anyways, but I chose to persuade, and he let me through. Amazing interactions, Todd. I go up to the keep area, and after going through this person, the Jarl named Balgruff thanks me for the warning and sends some extra guards to Riverwood, and then he tells me that I should help his court wizard Farengar. Farengar is a weird dude, and his voice actor clearly is having issues reading his lines.
Oh yes, he must be referring to my research into the dragons. Yes, I could use someone to fetch something for me. Yes, I could use someone to fetch something for me.
He tells me to go find the Dragonstone, which I already have, so he can learn more about the dragon threat. I hand it to him, and Irileth comes in and says that a dragon is attacking the Western Watchtower, and the Jarl asks me to kill the dragon with Irileth and her men. I then get to hear the best speech of all time.
A dragon is attacking the Western Watchtower.
A dragon? Now we're in for it.
You heard right. I said a dragon. I don't much care where it came from.
You have the Jarl's confidence, friend.
What I do
So
know
you
is
have
that it's
mine.
made the mistake of attacking Whiterun.
But Houseguard, how could we fight a dragon?
That's a fair question. None of us have ever seen a dragon before, or expected to face one in battle. But we are honor-bound to fight it, even if we fail. This dragon is threatening our homes, our families.
I work with my mother.
Could you call yourselves Nords?
We find the Watchtower in flames, and this guy comes out and tells us to back off in case the dragon is still around, and sure enough, we see it come flying down. Look, as much as I probably give crap to Bethesda and the obsession with dragons and such, I did have a good time fighting this one, and it came pretty close too since I like to play on Expert. After the dragon dies, you end up taking the dragon's power and are able to use the shout that you got back from Bleak Falls Barrow, which is the first part of Unrelenting Force. The guards call you a Dragonborn for this ability, and I go back to the Jarl. When I enter Whiterun, I hear this loud call from up top the mountain while I get interrupted by a bunch of unwanted shit.
Let's A letter. Looks like that's it. Got to go.
The Jarl awards me with a house Carl and other stuff and tells me to go see the Greybeards, as they called for the Dragonborn due to what I did to the dragon at the Watchtower. Now I have to journey to Iverstead, and it's going to be quite the walk. I come across this dude who lies to you 3 times and then doesn't want to talk. He actually has a page in this guidebook that I still have from years ago, and he says a lot more stuff, so you have to come across him again if you want to see what else he can say. I also came across this, whatever the fuck this is. And then this bitch.
Hold it. This here's a toll road, see? You're gonna have to hand over, say, 200 gold if you want to use our road. Huh. Tough talk for someone who's about to have their guts spilled.
I get to Iverstead and I have to walk up a ton of stairs until I get to High Hrothgar, and I talk to this Arngir guy. The Greybeards are masters of what's called the Way of the Voice and are able to teach people how to shout. It's explained that shouts are made up of 3 words of power that you have to learn separately that are part of the dragon language, I guess, and get stronger when you get more words. They teach you the second word for Unrelenting Force, as well as the first word for a new shout called Whirlwind Sprint, which pushes you forward really fast. Arngir then tells you to go to a Nordic ruin to get this horn that belonged to their founder Jorgen Windcaller. The ruin itself is at least a little interesting, especially with this puzzle that utilizes the whirlwind shout. With most ruins, I imagine, we also get a new shout called Become Ethereal. We get to where the horn is supposed to be, and we found out that it's been stolen by a friend who wants to meet you in Riverwood. When we meet this friend, it's apparently a chick named Delphine, who I really don't like, more on that later, and she hands you the horn. She also tells you that a group of hers has been looking for a Dragonborn, and is skeptical if you are actually the Dragonborn. She also tells the player that dragons aren't necessarily returning, they're coming back to life somehow. So Delphine tells us to meet her at Kynes Grove to a burial mound where she somehow thinks of the exact time that this dragon is about to be brought back to life, and she is correct somehow. We see the same dragon we were with at the beginning of the game, resurrecting another, and we kill it, and I prove to Delphine that I'm the fucking Dragonborn. She also wants to know who is behind the resurrecting of the dragons, even though we just fucking saw who it was, and she thinks that the Thalmor are behind it for some reason. Delphine also tells us how she was part of the Blades, who swore loyalty to the Dragonborn and were good dragon hunters, but are actively being hunted down by the Thalmor. If you didn't know, the Thalmor are high elves from the Almeri Dominion that are enforcing the rules of the treaty between the Empire and the Dominion, which is called the White Gold Concordat. This naturally pissed off the Nords because it made the Empire in Skyrrim look weak, and it also outlawed the worship of the god Talos. The Blades were also to be disbanded, and the Thalmor have been looking to kill them all. Hence why Delphine is paranoid all the damn time. She tells you to meet her back at Riverwood, but I decide to give the horn back to the Greybeards first. I give them the horn back, and they teach me the last word of Unrelenting Force, and I get initiated with them yelling at my ears for 30 seconds. Oh yeah, I also forgot to mention that I saved this one dude from the Thalmor because his mom and brother from Whiterun wanted to know if he was still alive. The guy's name is Thorald, and he went to go fight for the Stormcloaks, but he went missing. The Thalmor apparently had him held prisoner in collusion with the Imperial supporters in Whiterun named the Battleborns. I ventured way up north to this fort where he's being held, and I set him free. He didn't come back to Whiterun to see his mom, though, instead opting to go fight for the Stormcloaks again with his brother. His mom is a little bit upset at first when I tell her about it, but is happy to know that her missing son is alive and doing what he wants. Back to the story. So Delphine wants me to break into the Thalmor embassy to find any information on the dragons. She points me out to an informant out in Solitude named Melbourne, who sneaks me in as an invited guest to one of the parties that the Thalmor embassy holds with high-profile people. When I get into the party, I have to cause a distraction so I can slip into the back room and start snooping around. Apparently you have multiple ways to cause a distraction, so I decide to pick the drunk guy to do it by giving him a drink. He's actually pretty funny.
Is that all? My friend, you've come to the right person. Stand back and behold my handiwork.
Now that I'm inside, I start murdering my way through the embassy, and I find a number of documents on people like Delphine, Ulfric Stormcloak, and a man named Esbern, who is also with the Blades. The Thalmor are just as clueless on the dragons as Delphine was, but think that this Esbern guy might know something about them. After freeing a prisoner and Melbourne because he was caught, we escape the embassy. I head back to Delphine and tell her about what I found, and she tells me that Esbern was an expert archivist on the lore of dragons. In order to get him to trust me, I have to tell him to remember the 30th of Frostfall. He's apparently hiding out in the underbelly of the city of Riften called the Ratways, where the Thalmor are already there looking for him. When I find where he is, he tells me that the World Eater Alduin, this dragon, will consume everything in the world as well as in the afterlife, and that the world is doomed unless a dragonborn happens to exist. Wow, how convenient that I reassure him that I'm Dragonborn and everyone isn't going to die. I take him back to Riverwood to talk to Delphine, and when we get back, Esbern talks about a place called Skyhaven Temple that we need to get to because it holds a secret to the lore of the dragons called Alduin's Wall, which may prove essential. After fighting through these 4 sworn guys, we have to get through 2 not-so-difficult puzzles until we get to the entrance of the temple, which actually looks pretty cool. In order to open the door, I have to give a bit of my blood to this blood seal, and then we get inside. Esbern looks at Alduin's Wall, and it shows that a shout was used to defeat Alduin, but it's unknown to the player. You tell Delphine that the Greybeards might know, and she turns into an unlikable cunt when you question why she doesn't like the Greybeards.
If they had their way, you do nothing but sit up on their mountain with them and talk to the sky, or whatever it is they do. The Greybeards are so afraid of power that they won't use it. Think about it. Have they tried to stop the Civil War, or done anything about Alduin? No. And they're afraid of you, of your power. Trust me, there is no need to be afraid. Think of Tiber Septim. Do you think he'd have founded the Empire if he'd listened to the Greybeards?
You know, it's none of their business to get involved in anything, dumbass. Sometimes those with immense power wish to keep to themselves. They don't have to get involved. Anyways, I go talk to Arngir and I ask him if he knows what the shout is. He also turns into a bit of a cunt for a moment, but another Greybeard corrects his misjudgment and he apologizes. The shout that I need is called Dragonrend, but the Greybeards don't know it, nor do they care for it since it was created in hatred of Alduin and the Dragon Cult, which conflicts with their teachings. The only solution is to talk to their leader Parthenax at the top of the mountain, and they teach me one last shout, Clear Skies, to open the gate to get to him. On the way there, you fight a couple of ice wraiths and have to clear out a bunch of fog. When you finally reach the top,
Dremyolok, greetings, Wundernik. I am Parthenax. Who are you? What brings you to my Strumach, my mountain?
yeah, apparently Parthenax is a dragon. I actually like this guy a lot, and he even wants you to breathe fire in his face as a greeting and will teach you how to do it. After a bit of philosophy, he tells you that the Dragonrend shout actually crippled Alduin, but didn't defeat him. The ancient Nords used what's called an Elder Scroll to cast him through time, hoping he would never appear again, in the exact place that you're standing in. An Elder Scroll is basically a powerful plot device that can be used to do some weird, unexplainable shit, but is convenient to move the story ahead. Parthenax also doesn't know what the Dragonrend shout is, as dragons can't comprehend it due to what it does, but he does tell you that you could be able to learn it if you were to find an Elder Scroll yourself and read it on this spot where time was disturbed. I can learn what the shout was from the source of when Alduin was defeated from the people who used it. I quickly talk to Arngir if he knows anything about the Elder Scrolls, and he tells me that the College of Winterhold might know something about it. After heading a bit up north of Winterhold, I talk to this nutcase since he seems to be knowledgeable of where an Elder Scroll might be.
Oh, I am well. I will be well. Well to be within the will inside the walls.
He gives me 2 dwarven tools and tells me about this place called Blackreach, a place made by the now extinct dwarves. He is absolutely obsessed with opening this damn box over there and tells me that the cube can store data from the facility that houses the Elder Scroll. I get the Elder Scroll, he gets the box. A fair trade, I guess. The sphere opens the locked doors in dwarven ruins that block access from Blackreach, so that's definitely important. I travel to a dwarven ruin nearby, and it's by far one of my favorite dungeons in the game. It has an interesting story about an expedition team that was broken up due to many events happening at once, and their story is unraveled the further you venture into the ruin. I'm not going to talk about it that much since I think other people should experience it for themselves. It's pretty neat. Eventually, I open the gateway at the end to Blackreach, and it only gets better from here. Blackreach is my favorite area in the game. It's beautiful all around to look at, and I just enjoy walking around it. I'll check out the rest of it later, since I know there is a side quest to attend to here. I'm supposed to venture into this tower facility and operate a machine puzzle to acquire the Elder Scroll that's kept there. I use the cube to acquire the data that the one guy wanted, and I press a few buttons here and there. It's not challenging by any means, but it's a visually engaging puzzle, and I guess it's enough to be perfectly acceptable. After getting out of there, I travel back to Parthenax to read the Elder Scroll of the Time Wound, and an extremely dumb cutscene ensues. Seriously, these cutscenes suck so much because of how janky everything is. None of it feels correct at all.
This scene is so dumb.
The one where everyone's just flying all over the fucking place.
No, well, they're not really flying. Okay, actually, yeah, I just saw the... I just saw the ragdoll. What the hell? What is happening?
I love that scene so much.
Oh, no, dude, I'll show you what happened. In the recording when I'm done.
Alright. Oh, boy.
On this age and send you out. You are banished.
Besides that, I learn the Dragon Wren shout from the Old Nords, and after I'm done, Alduin appears to challenge me. Besides being able to bring him down with a new shout and him summoning meteors from the sky, Alduin is no different than fighting any other dragon. It's a really disappointing fight because Alduin is an absolute fucking bullet sponge, holy fuck. And when you finally defeat him, you get this ridiculous interaction where he just sits there and then runs away.
Just my follower just like smacked Alduin in the face, like when he's, you know, panting and he's supposed to run away right now. Yeah, there he is. Now he's running away.
After he runs away, good old Parthy and I discuss where he might have gone, and Parthenax brings up the possibility of convincing one of Alduin's allies to betray him and help me out. This involves convincing the Jarl of Whiterun to trap a dragon in the palace since the back end was made for trapping them. You have two different options here. Either you end the civil war going on to convince him it'll be okay to spare troops for this endeavor, or you hold a peace council between the Imperials and the Stormcloaks for a temporary ceasefire until Alduin is dealt with. I'll go ahead and deal with the truce even though I really don't want to. I'll focus on the Civil War questline later. In order to get this to work, I have to have the Greybeards host the diplomatic meeting as both sides have a degree of respect for them. I then have to get Tullius and Ulfric to agree to come up, which wasn't too difficult. When the meeting actually starts, Delphine and Esbern decide to interject themselves in it, I guess, and Ulfric gets really mad over the fact that the Thalmor ambassador is also present.
I have every right to be at this negotiation. I need to ensure that nothing is agreed to here that violates the terms of the White Gold Concordat.
She's part of the Imperial delegation. You can't dictate who I bring to this council.
Please, if we have to negotiate the terms of the negotiation, we will never get anywhere.
I tell him it's not that big of a deal, and we begin the negotiations. Ulfric and Jarl Elisif of Solitude get really upsetty spaghetti with each other, and after some arguing, the terms are that Ulfric will receive the Reach and Falkreath, while Tullius and the Imperials will receive the Rift. After the terms are set, Delphine turns into an absolute bitch and demands that I kill Parthenax because he had a history of working with Alduin and committing atrocities. Even with the knowledge of Parthenax teaching people how to shout and betraying Alduin in the end anyways, isn't really going to convince Delphine otherwise. Yeah, I'm not gonna do it. She can go fuck herself. It's really stupid, and I'm never gonna do it, ever. Esbern, though, on the other hand, tells me about a dragon that I can call to the palace by simply shouting its name. Dragons can't resist a challenge, so this dragon named Odahviing would certainly respond to the call. Now, Balgruuf will finally let me use his fucking dragon trap, and I call in Odahviing. It's not very difficult to draw him into the trap, as I just walk straight back and lead him into the trap. After some talking, he tells me that Alduin fled to Sovngarde, basically Nord Heaven, to devour the souls of the dead in order to regain strength. Odahviing offers to fly me to the, Nordic ruin of Skuldafn where I can access Sovngarde. If I can defeat Alduin, he'll serve me, I guess, so that's cool. After arriving at Skuldafn, it's a mixed bag of a dungeon. There's the symbol puzzles from earlier that you flip around, and it's a little bit more engaging here, but that's pretty much it. Besides the dragons that you get interrupted with, there is this dragon priest at the end that has a unique mask that can be used for a side objective on the map that I'll talk about later. Make sure to keep it. After the priest dies, you take his magic stick and put it on the pedestal where you can then enter Sovngarde. Sovngarde is another area that I really like. I love the heavenly sky and the architecture that dots the landscape. I can see Alduin in the distance devouring people in the mist that he's created as well. The Hall of Valor is a place I need to gain access to, so I make my way through the mist, and when I reach the entrance, I have to fight this one really beefy dude to prove myself worthy of going inside. I find the 3 Nord heroes who defeated Alduin the first time, and we join forces. We go outside and dispel Alduin's mist with our combined clear sky shouts, and the final fight ensues. Look, as much of a dump I took on the last Alduin fight, I don't know about doing it again here. It's basically the same, just a different area and other people are helping me, but at the same time, his death animation was pretty satisfying to see. After Alduin dies, the beefy gatekeeper guy congratulates me on my victory and gives me a shout to summon a hero of Sovngarde to aid me whenever. He then teleports me back to reality with a shout. I get teleported to the top of the mountain again, and I'm in the middle of a gigantic meeting of dragons that are death chanting for their fallen leader. Parthenax still sees Alduin as a brother in some way and cannot celebrate his fall, but is eager that he'd be able to teach the now leaderless dragons about the way of the voice, and hopefully turning some of them away from Alduin's leadership. Odahviing is also there to tell you he'll help you out as you've proven your worth to him twice over. And that is Skyrim's main quest line. Where to even start? Alright, I don't have many great things to say about the main quest line. I remember enjoying it the first time around when I was like 14 years old. After playing it many years later as an adult, I don't feel the same way. I'm really bothered by the absence of dialogue and interactions with the characters of this world. It makes me want to come back to Fallout New Vegas at every single turn. While I like characters like Parthenax, I wish there was more things I could talk with him about, including a shit ton of other characters that have the same exact issue. There's also the fact that this is one of multiple "you're the chosen one to do X thing" storylines. Doesn't make me feel very interested in any of the shit that's going on. In this game, you have plenty of big-name titles, but ultimately they don't mean anything for your experience at the end of it all. I mean, I guess the guards will say some more things about you the further you go. Yay. Delphine is a complete idiot. I really don't like the Blades. I think they're presented as being assholes in an unnecessary way with why they want you to kill Parthenax. The fights with Alduin suck, and the dragon fights themselves get old really fast after the 3rd or 4th encounter. I want to like this world a lot, there are plenty of things about it to like, but this overall experience with this questline wasn't all too great. I should probably touch on a few other things that gave me some thoughts before we continue talking about more quests. First, the skills. Pretty much every mechanic in the game with the player revolves around the skills that you work on. I don't have too much to say about it because I haven't played the other games in the Elder Scrolls series. However, what I will say is the number of completely worthless trees and perks. Who actually gives a shit about the blocking and pickpocketing trees? Seriously, who does? I can only think of one case in the Thieves Guild questline at the beginning where you plant the ring on the one dude, but that's pretty much it. Then there's useless perks like being able to have an easier time with novice locks and not being able to trigger pressure plates. What amazing perks. Then there's the skills that clearly didn't think too far to how abused they would end up, among them being enchanting, alchemy, and smithing. Smithing is the path to go down for armor. Don't bother buying anything from merchants or relying on luck from loot chests in dungeons. It's not worth your time. As for the others, alchemy and enchanting are basically the key to breaking the game with insane effects to the equipment that you use.
You will be able to make game-breaking stuff with this. I mean, once you have the potion active, you can just craft some of the most ridiculous stuff, like Magicka regenerates 29,000% faster, or increase your health by 40,000. It's pretty ridiculous, and there's no limit to how high you can get it.
Holy shit! Combat is tediously simple, but that's not to say there is no variety in weapons and options. I fancy myself a war axe and a healing spell. It's my go-to. You have some choices of one-handed and two-handed weapons that function differently in terms of speed and damage to your liking, and also bows and crossbows. You can also be a mage that uses different combinations of destruction and conjuration spells along with the other kinds, that can get really overpowered later on. There are also plenty of shouts that you can use beyond Unrelenting Force that I mentioned earlier. However, I didn't bother with these. I'm not sure if I mentioned this already, but oh my god, there are way too many characters that share the same voice. I've heard this guy's voice so many fucking times, I just roll my eyes when I hear it. I understand not being able to acquire 5,000 voice actors, I get it, but at the same time, a little more variety could break up that monotony. The gold in this game quickly becomes worthless as you amass thousands of gold in a couple of hours of gameplay. How, you ask? By selling all the shit that you don't use back to merchants. You can enter this cycle of taking all the loot you get from dungeons and then bankrupting every person that sells shit on the map. Money is bullshit in this game. Now back to more questing. Now that the main quest line is done and over with, we can move on to everything else. Or at least try to, because there's a lot more. I'm going to move on to the Civil War quest line, where both sides will be covered. I chose the Stormcloaks like I usually do. In order to join the Stormcloaks, you have to go to Windhelm to talk to Ulfric Stormcloak and Galmar. Galmar has you fight an ice wraith on some buttfuck nowhere island up north in order to ensure that only the strong can survive the Stormcloaks. I fight this little annoying shit, and I come back, and Galmar has me take an oath of loyalty to the Stormcloaks. Galmar then tells me to go to this, Nordic ruin to find this crown that would legitimize Ulfric's claim as High King somehow. When we get there, the Imperials are already there ahead of us, and they're easily cleaved through like butter. The deeper we go, there's some Draugr to fight, another shout, and then the crown. Not at all interesting in terms of a dungeon, it's just a ton of NPCs smacking each other the whole time. I then engage in an act of diplomacy by delivering Ulfric's axe to Jarl Balgruuf of Whiterun. Balgruuf tells me to return it, and Ulfric gets ready to attack the city. When I get over there, Galmar admittedly makes a pretty testosterone-filled speech to hype everyone up.
We are farmers, we are craftsmen, we are sons and daughters of shopkeepers, maidservants, and soldiers. We are the sons and daughters of Skryim. And we have come this far because our cause is true, because we fight as one, and because our hearts are bursting with anger. What we do here today, we do for our country, for all the true lords of Skryim. Whiterun's walls are tall, but they are old and crumbling, like the Empire whose legion knives them. They've barricades to block us, but we'll tear through them, and the Imperials behind them.
Whiterun falls pretty easily as you whoop everyone's ass and the Jarl gets bitch-slapped. Balgruuf gets replaced by Vignar Greymane and he isn't happy with you for obvious reasons. You then take a bunch of forts that are mosh pits of respawning enemies, meh, and you forge some documents. A few forts later, you finally get to take Solitude at Ulfric's side, and his speech here is kind of funny.
Still bearing the shields to our right. Will know the fullness of our determination, the true depth of our anger, and the exalted righteousness of our cause. The gods are watching. The spirits of our ancestors are stirring. And men, under suns yet to dawn, will be transformed by what we do here today. Fear neither pain nor darkness, for Sovngarde awaits those who die with weapons in their hands and courage in their hearts. We now fight our way to Castle Tower, to cut the head off the Legion itself. And in that moment, the gods will look down and see Skryim as she was meant to be, full of Nords who are mighty, powerful, and free! Everyone, with me, for the sons and daughters of Skryim!
After cleaving your way through the city and getting to Castle Door, Legate Rika is there and refuses to back down when Ulfric gives her the chance to walk away.
You're a damn fool.
Stand aside, woman. We've come for the general.
He has given up, but I have not.
Rika, go. You're free to leave.
I'm also free to stay and fight for what I believe in.
You're also free to die for it.
This is what you wanted? Shield brothers and sisters killing each other? Families torn apart? This is the Skryim.
Woman, stand aside.
That's not the Skryim I want to live in.
Rika, you don't have to do this.
You've left me no choice. Talos deserves us.
We then kill her dumbass, and then I decide to let Ulfric execute Tullius because I didn't really care. Before Tullius dies, he tells us that the Thalmor wanted this all to happen, for Skryim and the Empire to be weakened as they are planning another massive conflict. They desired for the Stormcloaks to win. As I mentioned before during the main quest line, the Great War between the Elmeri Dominion and the Empire ended when both sides signed an armistice called the White Gold Concordat. There were many conditions that were made in the Dominion's favor, the two most prominent being control given to the Dominion over the province of Hammerfell, home of the Red Guard, and the banning of Talos worship. In the case of the latter, this is the main motivation for the rebellion in Skryim. In regards to the former, this was the equivalent of the Empire handing the Dominion a venomous snake as the Red Guards went to war against the Dominion after this. This led to a 5-year-long conflict ending with Hammerfell becoming an independent nation from both major factions. I bring this up because the prospect of Skryim becoming an autonomous nation able to drive out and potentially defeat the Dominion is not too far-fetched. Although, when comparing how well equipped they are after fighting a war against the Legion could result in a different outcome. Take what you will of what Tullius states, but the Thalmor absolutely desired this outcome. Anyways, Ulfric then gives a victory speech about how every Stormcloak is a hero and that Skryim needs to be rebuilt in order to prepare for the conflict ahead. And that's the Civil War questline, at least for the Stormcloaks. Yeah, there's not really much to this questline, it's pretty mundane, bare bones. Now, you can also see what happens if you side with the Imperials instead, but the only difference is a guard in different outfits telling you to stop shouting in the city, and a couple of dialogue options when you talk to certain people. Skryim has this problem where you can become a hero of X thing or bear an important title, but it feels like nothing has been accomplished or done as a result of what you've done. It's pretty disappointing, but hey, at least Galmar was cool, and Ulfric was sorta cool, I guess.
Joining the Legion is pretty much the same thing if you join the Stormcloaks. Do a thing, swear an oath, and that's it. After that, it's retrieve the crown, defend Whiterun.
The outer walls are strong. If we can hold them there.
They have catapults.
Damn it. Where did they get catapults? The city walls are already falling apart as it is. The outer walls are strong. The city walls are already falling apart as it is. The outer walls are strong. The outer walls are strong. The outer walls are strong. The city walls are already falling apart as it is.
Stormcloak and the rebel Jarls who support him. But make no mistake, what we do here today, we do for Skryim and her people. By cutting out the disease of this rebellion, we will make this country whole again.
Not win this.
Our fallen brothers have died for naught. Lest our honor be lessened, should we allow these bloodthirsty beasts.
Capture one fort after another before taking Windhelm and killing Ulfric. Blah blah blah, I hate giving speeches. But in this outcome, a guard in a skirt tells you to stop shouting.
I need to ask you to stop. That shouting is making people nervous. Can't say I've heard of any laws against whatever that is you're doing, but I'll lock you up if I have to. I've got my eye on you.
Fools!
The two major players in this faction are General Tullius, an Imperial who you meet at the beginning of the game, and Legate Ricca, a native Nord of Skryim and advisor to Tullius. From Tullius's perspective, the rebellion is weakening the strength of the Empire, and later on, he admits that the resolution of unifying Skryim is necessary for the looming Second Great War against the Thalmor. I kind of feel like I would have preferred to have played that game instead. Ricca considers herself a daughter of Skryim, just as much as any other Stormcloak. She thinks highly of Ulfric and respects his past contributions, but sees his actions as misguided. Why though? When the topic on the banning of Talos is brought up, the main motivation for this rebellion, she ends the conversation. A better case of justification for Legion support comes from Solitude's court mage. She was a mother figure to Torrig, the former High King of Skryim, and an advisor to him, and later his widowed wife Elisif. She brings up three important arguments on the position of the Stormcloaks. Based on her personal experience with Torrig, the prospect of Ulfric convincing him to rebel against the Legion was not outside the realm of possibility, as he held a great deal of respect for Ulfric. Second, despite the lack of what is portrayed in the world's setting, Skryim needs the resources of the Legion to survive. Third, while the worship of Talos is banned, the Legion is fighting to maintain the empire of Tiber Septim, the man who would later become the god Talos. In the matter of what races currently serve in the Legion, it is no surprise that most of its forces consist of Nords, given the fact that this conflict is more akin to a proxy war. From what I could see, there were no elves within its ranks. I don't want to come across as racist, but I just can't tell the difference if these were dark-skinned Imperials, Nords, or Bretons, or if these were actually Redguards in their armies as well. Although, after Ulfric is slain, she does give a prayer to Talos for his sake. Tullius takes notice of this, but passes it off when she tells him she was just saying goodbye. Nice touch. On another note, I was somewhat impressed that the game remembered that I had given Markarth to the Stormcloaks in the ceasefire portion of the main quest. So, gold star to Bethesda. Too bad you couldn't have added separate dialogue where Bolgraf remembered that I was the Dragonborn when I sent him the letter on behalf of the Legion. Tradition is important to the Nords of Skyrim as it's a driving factor for the Civil War. Before you start the mission to retrieve the Jagged Crown for the Empire, Tullius and Rika are having a heated discussion regarding this topic. Tullius is frustrated with Rika at the prospect of looking for some old relic when he was led to believe that the Moot was supposed to decide the High King. As I said before, Tullius is an outsider and does not understand Nord customs, so having a native-born like Rika serving as his advisor is a much-needed asset. In fact, his character arc by the end of this side of the quest line revolves around him having a much more deep-seated respect for the Nords, their land, and saying that he'll be staying in Skyrim for many years to come. That's all well and good, but I feel like more could have been done to show his change of face towards the Nords. Rika says that the crown would not automatically make Ulfric High King, but it would serve as a powerful symbol. He ultimately concedes but still thinks it's a waste of time. Nothing much comes of this after you get the crown. No ceremony where Tullius presents the crown to Elisif. The next point is in regards to Ulfric slaying the former High King of Skyrim, Torygg. According to Skyrim's customs, Ulfric was within his rights to question the High King's ability to lead the province and basically challenge him to a trial by combat. However, the point of contention lies with how Ulfric killed the High King that has divided the Nords' allegiance in Skyrim. Ulfric was given the honor to learn how to shout by the Greybeards, and later used this ability to defeat Torygg. In the old days, the shout was used by the Nordic warriors called the Tongues. However, after their humiliating defeat at the Battle of Red Mountain against the dwarves and the Chimer, the shout became a means of worship to the gods. Some will say that Ulfric using this ability was a message that the Nords have become weak and must return to a more traditionalist mindset as a warrior culture, while others come to hate this abuse of such a gift. Regardless, this was a poor mistake on Ulfric's part as the Legion used this as propaganda to vilify Ulfric and the Stormcloak Rebellion. You can even see this propagated by Tullius at the beginning of the game. This all culminates in the fact that Torygg was forced to fight Ulfric out of honor, and the outcome of the match was far more outweighed against him. Torygg, as some within the game would describe him as just a boy, essentially inherited his position from his father after signing the White Gold Concordat. Ulfric was a veteran warrior who served as a legionnaire during the Great War, and later on successfully led an attack to retake Markarth from the Forsworn. Torygg stood no chance, and thus there were Nords who considered this fight unfair. Using the voice outweighed the outcome of this trial completely in Ulfric's favor. The last part, Jarl Bolgraf of Whiterun's role in the Civil War. He is a well-respected warrior who even Ulfric holds in high esteem, calling him a true Nord. Skyrim's leadership is divided into two factions, 4 of them pro-Legion and the other 4 pro-Ulfric. Bolgraf, and by extension Whiterun, is neutral and lies within the center of Skyrim, serving as a main buffer between both sides. Both factions are pressuring the Jarl to pick a side. Regardless of which army the player serves, he will align himself with the Legion. The outcome of this battle will determine if more Nords join the Stormcloaks if Ulfric wins, or if they decide not to, should the Legion win.
So to take a break from a couple of the quest lines in the game, a friend told me to look at the bookcases behind this guy's area because I'd find some quests to do behind it. And I found 2 that I've never done before. One about an Ethereum forge, which is supposed to be a forge made by the dwarves that makes some amazing shit, and another quest called Forbidden Legends. I'm going to attend to the Ethereum forge one first and head to this dwarven ruin at the bottom of the map. I go inside and a voice tells me to turn back.
Before it's too late.
I ignore it, and this ghost of a woman named Katria, who died here tells me that there is great danger ahead and doesn't want me to die like others have already. I assure her that I'm insistent on not turning back and ask her what's going on. She tells me about how she cared about what she discovered concerning the Ethereum Forge and how her apprentice stole the information that she recorded and published it under his own name. She can't rest until she has proof of the Forge's existence, so she feels like she finally accomplished something and mattered to the world somehow. I like this character, so I absolutely accept her help in the process of seeing what's at the end of the ruin. After some fighting and acquiring her journal and bow, we come to the end puzzle that she feared so much. Apparently, when she failed at this puzzle, it caused a massive earthquake which resulted in her death. You have to fire arrows at the mechanisms above in the correct order or risk something bad happening like an earthquake. With some hints from Katria's journal and a dead body on a nearby adventure, I do figure out how to do it eventually. I did fuck up once, but thankfully it was just a bunch of spiders that crawled out. The treasure is a piece of a key made of Ethereum, and there are 3 more pieces to find. To mention another thing here, I like how there aren't markers for much of this quest, having to rely on what Katria left behind in her journals in order to find where the rest of the shards are. After a lengthy process of finding all the shards, I then find where the forge is hidden, and the lead up to the forge is pretty cool. Not too long after, we go through a gauntlet of enemies and having to turn off the steam in the room, and a really big boy called the Forge Master, which breathes fucking fire. After barely defeating this final obstacle, I get to use the forge, but I can only use the Ethereum from the shards I've collected. I can choose one of 3 items to make: a crown, a shield, and a staff with all unique abilities. I chose to make the staff because it summons a dwarven spider or sphere to fight at your side for a small amount of time. After I make the staff, Katria has quite the dialogue for me, and it's honestly really touching.
For me, I've done what I set out to do. But you, take that out into the world, and if anyone asks, tell them what we discovered together. I've waited so long for this moment. We found it at last. And now, I think I can rest. Farewell, my friend, wherever your travels take you.
I really like this quest. I'm glad I was told of its existence, and I really like dicking around with the staff that I got out of it. Katria is a cool character, and I wasn't disappointed with how the ending played out. Well done, Bethesda. The other quest, Forbidden Legends, is alright, but it does have a nice ending. After you read the book, you have to go to 3 Nordic ruins, and then you have to fight specific characters that all share the same last name. According to the legend, long ago the Archmage Galdor was murdered by his 3 sons, who stole his amulet of power and divided it among themselves. There's an amulet on each of these sons that you have to get when you kill them, and when you get all 3, you go to Galdor's tomb, which is another Nordic ruin. Man, dude, 4 Nordic ruins in one quest? Hell yeah! The last part of the quest is basically you fighting a gauntlet of all 3 sons, and when they're all defeated, Galdor appears and reassembles the amulet. The amulet itself is actually pretty useful. The process of actually acquiring all of the pieces of the amulet, though, wasn't so fun. Not to mention the fact that you have to do a College of Winterhold quest in order to get one of the amulets, so I had to do something that I didn't even want to do. I don't really like the college quests. So overall, this one was eh.
It is here in Whiterun where we come across Skyrim's horse carriage system. In the spirit of Morrowind and Oblivion, Skyrim's fast travel is indicative of both games. While this feature exists like in Oblivion, travel to all major settlements initially are given ease of access via a cart system, much like Morrowind. With this, exploration in the region's various environments are more convenient for players early on. However, after the player has used this transportation to discover all 9 major holds, it becomes redundant. We'll start with this to travel to Winterhold, where the Mage's College is located. Arriving at the hold, I took a moment to enjoy the splendor of this Nordic town. The seemingly sterilizing color palette of the snow and ice, the lively natives, the dilapidated houses, and the mighty palace home to this hold's Jarl. You come to appreciate just how much of a shithole this place is and how much Bethesda has to rely on its lore to justify this lazy design decision. Cry with tears of sorrow at the later realization that 3 more of the other 9 holds have the same uninspired design philosophy that our Lord and Savior gifted to us in this game. Once we arrive at the gateway of the college, we are stopped by one of its mages. The elf tells us she is guarding the entrance from untrusting locals and other undesirable intruders. In order to gain entry, we must first pass a test. What is this test, you might ask? For us to cast an apprentice level spell that you can easily buy and learn cheaply from this mage if you don't have it. Thanks, Todd. Once we've spun a hot track from our hand, we are allowed in. Instead of using some badass teleportation spell to bring us to the college grounds, our vigilant defender leaves her post, never to go back there again, slowly taking me to the entrance. The contemplation to end my character's life weighed heavily on me during this venture. I was then instructed to speak to Mirabelle to begin my enrollment. Here, I meet the dumbest NPC in the quest, the Archmage of the college, Savos Aaron. He is also one of the many characters who will shove down the player's throat that the justification of the aforementioned design decisions. After this, we ingratiate the presence of the second dumbest character in this questline, Ancano, one of the few reminders where the ever-beloved Thalmor have their arms up to the elbows in Skyrim's politics. After that, I spoke with Mirabelle. She is surprised to see yet another eager initiate after an influx of students. She gives me some robes and a tour of the college. Oh boy, I can't wait to see all the ins and outs of Skyrim's College of Magic. Wow! You guys use doors to get to places and stairs to move up floors? Golly, this place is just as shitty and uninspiring as Winterhold. Where's the warp panels or levitation platforms, the floating books, the magical runes and artifacts scrawled across the area? There's no dueling arena or dungeons with monsters for students or staff to practice their spells. The only magical things here are the glowing piles of jizz in the middle of the room and the automatic swinging door. This is all so boring. After that disappointment was over, I was instructed to attend Tolftyr's magical lecture with the other students inside the main building. Here we meet 3 other students? What the fuck? I thought Mirabelle said the college had many other students come in recently. I guess it goes to show how unpopular magic is in Skyrim, but the province is not a homogeneous society. It is filled with other races besides the Nords. So we have a Nord, a Dark Elf, and a Khajiit. More on this trio later. Anyways, these misfits are bitching at Discount Gandalf cause we are wizards too, Harry. So MC Braids over here decides to teach us about wards. I don't know one, so he teaches me the spell and we get it on the first try. This will be the last time magic will be taught practically in this school. After that invigorating lesson that kept me drowsy at the edge of my seat, we decided to go on a field trip to the Nordic ruins of Sarthal. Yay! Once I arrived there, Rags to Robes waved his hands and incited the magical incantation to undo the developer's restriction behind this door. We get inside, I pick up an amulet, get trapped inside, push a stone wall into rubble with my fire spell, where an old man in a flamboyant colored robe apparates from the rectum of the very air, stopping time to tell me I'm special. Oh boy. I tell Tolftyr about this possible sexual harassment, and like any good teacher, he blows it off. We Wizard 101 our way through some meat men, where Tolftyr decides to blow me off, as he needs to inspect them fine specimens of undead man. So after more boring hallways filled with uninspiring fodder, Tolftyr catches up with us, cleaning up after Wingardiing his Laviosa. Inside, we find a giant glowing testicle with carvings on it. We fight a bitch-ass boss, and Tolftyr tells us to let Senpai Savos know what we've found. We find the old fuck sitting on his ass in his office, jerking off and doing jack shit. Our correspondence about the glowing ball piques the permavirgin's interest and tells us to go to the Arcanium because he lost his library card. Or something. After opening a door and walking down yet another flight of wizard stairs, we enter the college's library. Much like the rest of the college, the Arcanium lives up to the reputation of being boring and uninspired. This is topped off with the orc owner of this collection of potential radiant and side quests sounding just as excited to be here as I am. Shrek tells us that the book we need was stolen by some guy who was simping for another faction of mage duels. The epitomizing cherry on top is that nobody until I has given enough of a fuck to go back and get them because reasons. I arrive at Felglow Keep, where we fight a couple of mages. Our next obstacle involves recreating the end of Charlotte's Web. Traveling further into the dungeon, I got to say, there's a lot more magic being practiced here than there is at the college. Magic firing ranges, lectures, and even some cages full of vampires and wild animals to be experimented on. Speaking of which, we come across the fuckbag who stole the books that brought us here in the first place. He offers me his assistance, but I tell him to fuck off because Todd Howard gave me this quest. Not you, bitch. At the end of the dungeon, I meet the leader of this faction you can't join, the Caller. Her reasons for wanting these books that have something to do with a glowing ball? No idea. I was too busy killing her to get this quest over with to care. After you return the plot device, Shrek gives you some mage skill books as a reward, which isn't that bad. Then you pass your findings on to Dumbleward, where he goes off on a rant at how awesome this glowing testicle is. Ancano the Ever-Lurking interrupts this fangasm. The elf informs us that a member of the Sigic Order is here and asks to speak to me specifically. When I got there, He stopped time to have some more one-on-one alone time. The monk informs me that in order to get more info on this relic known as the Eye of Magnus, we need to find someone called the Augur of Dulain. Oh my god! Why the fuck am I role-playing as a detective asking random people questions to get the next clue like fucking Scooby-Doo in the gang? Then, this seemingly omnipotent wizard fuck's genius plan is to excuse himself from this awkward dilemma by asking to use the bathroom and to jerk off far away from this shithole. I can't believe I'm saying this, but take me with you! So, surprise, surprise, Tall Fuck is the only person who knows about this guy we're supposed to find, and he's down in the local ice dungeon below the school called the Midden. The look and enemies in this place is just like everything else so far. Mundane and fucking boring. More on that later. So anyways, I get to this door and the voice behind it pretty much sums up my whole experience playing this game so far.
Your perseverance will only lead to disappointments. Still, you persist.
But anyways, I find the Augur, who also turns out to be a glowing testicle of light, so he would be an expert on this fucking thing. He warns me about the danger of misusing magic when he tells me, a complete stranger, how to utilize a relic of immense power. The Augur tells me that I need to find the Stick of Magnus to deal with the eye by poking it out, or whatever. The Dulain also informs me that Ancano, another stranger, was told about this as well. So, instead of informing the Archmage that a Thalmor agent has been told the implications of a dangerous magical artifact, I'm sent to fuckballs nowhere to find another faction of mages you cannot join in this game to locate the Rod of Destiny or whatever the fuck. Or whatever the fuck. Can I get my goddamn Scooby snack already? When I get to the Dwarven Ruins, I met an immortal dying mage who told me where to find the plot before shitting himself and dies. After fighting off quite possibly the worst enemies in the game, I find the key that opens the door to the plot. Here I meet a living member of this unjoinable faction. He bitches at me about how the project is ruined because the thing he needs is beyond his reach, despite somehow not realizing that I'm here means everything between him and the thing he needs is dead. So now I have to pull down my boxers, spread my asshole for Todd once more, and find the thing that's a couple yards away from where I was. Once I give him the McMuffin, he shows me a Dwarven oculary device that translates in the Dwarven tongue as plot device. After waiting 1,000 years for him to walk up the steps, I finally get to put the McNuggets into the machine, do some ice and fire shit, and mash some buttons. Once I got the machine operational, this bitch freaked the fuck out because somehow the projection was broken and blames me for it.
So what is it? What have you done? Did you know what we were attempting? Are you here to make sure your plan worked? That our efforts have been for nothing? Well, explain yourself. Go wrong? Go wrong? Everything is wrong. Everything. Whatever you have at that college has completely interfered with our work here.
Anyways, he finds that there's something powerful at the college blocking the signal to locate the other magical items in Tamriel. But somehow, he can find the Stick of Truth in Skryim. How convenient! Then, he makes the genius declaration that he's going to report the happenings at the college to the rest of the synods, forfeiting his right to live. God damn it, man! I'm gonna have to put a fucking bell on you. Stop doing this shit. Anyways, he tells me that the college is in danger. I get back there, and big surprise, Ancano is using the testicle that the other one explained to him how it works. Savos tries to stop him, but there's an explosion. Since Mirabelle is down, she gives us the task to find the Archmage. And he's dead. He died as he lived, glitching in a Bethesda game, but now, he's free. Fuck that guy. Then the college's gatekeeper tells us that there's trouble down in Winterhold. We go down there and fight some sperm that the ball ejaculated because Ancano was fondling it, or whatever. Then we tell Mirabelle where the MacGuffin is, and she gives us a plot device to open the door to Labyrinthian because... convenience. I get there and I traverse the labyrinth for which Labyrinthian is known for by traveling in a fucking straight line 70% of the time. The other 30 is killing things, going downstairs, listening to expositional bullshit, and solving difficult puzzles like, oh no! Which spell do I use? I got to the end of the dungeon and fought a boss so epic that he literally did jack shit except to use the stick on me. I get his loot, listen to some more pointless exposition, and fight Ancano's underling. I get back to the college and oh no! Mirabelle died off screen. I fought Ancano and beat him in 10 seconds flat. Then the orgy of flame boys show up to take the blue ball and then I become the Archmage after 5 hours of fetch questing. I wanna die. Now that I'm done with the climactic quest line of the Mages Guild and became Archmage of the college, it's time to do some other wizard shit. Remember those 3 other cum stains I mentioned at the beginning? Well, they are the 3 companions we can recruit for our quests. The first is a skinny-ass dark elf bitch, Brenlyn Marin, who needs my help with practicing her magic, instead of doing it on the numerous enemies encircling Winterhold or using the literal fucking basement dungeon right by the dorm rooms to do that. I thought the use of magic or experimentation on other students or staff was prohibited at school grounds. Apparently me being Archmage doesn't mean jack shit to this lady because I'm the person who's supposed to enforce these rules, right? Anyways, this quest has 2 stages. The first one makes everything green and you have to wait 4 to 5 in-game hours to move on. The second one is you literally wait for 1.5 minutes for a cutscene to end and you're done. The next one is Onmund the Nord. What's his story? He got bullied by his family for wanting to be a wizard cause Skryim belongs to the Nords, not magic. He wants you to get his family amulet back from some guy named Enther because now he gives a damn about them out of nowhere. So you ask the guy what he wants so you can get the amulet back. Here we find out that Onmund is a retard for not asking the same question and a pussy bitch for giving up after the first time asking it back. It just goes to show how bright the Nords are in the land of Skryim. So Enther wants you to get a staff back from a mage, so you have to go to yet another Nordic ruin to do that. The story here isn't that bad. A necromancer is bent on revenge against the Empire upon learning that her husband died in the Great War. So she decides to raise an army of the dead to do so along with the help of other mages. You have no choice in assisting her endeavor or convincing her to move on. You just kill her, get the staff, and that's it. The only actual resolution of this is that the spirits of the dead that were being manipulated were finally freed. But I could honestly give 2 shits. You give Enther the staff, he gives you the amulet, and you give the thing to Bitchmaid, and that's it. The last one is Jazargo the Furry. He'll brag to you about how he's driven to be one of the best wizards that ever was, and how everyone around him is inferior, but then asks you to help him. He's got fire scrolls that will help you ward off the undead that he wants you to test. It would be best to do this one with Onmund's quest, just on the basis of killing 2 birds with 1 quest. Just make sure you heal yourself a lot. After telling him how shit his scrolls are, he decides to be your companion. Now, for the side quests. First, you're given a task by the illusion magic teacher to clear the gunk from the cum dumpsters around the school. He gives you some cool looking gloves, and I receive a reward of greater soul gems for each one I cleanse. I never bothered completing it, because doing so means you have to give these babies up. Next is the Midden investigation quest, which is unmarked. You find the remnants of a ritual gone bad. According to the journal, a group of students tried to summon a Daedra and they all fucking died. In the incident report, the ritual involves using a set of rings that were locked in a chest in the goddamn library. So we take the things, put a ring on them, and then a pirate Daedra shows up. This is so fucking stupid. Here's your 2 choices in true Bethesda fashion. You either kill him and get nothing special, or you let him go and get a treasure map leading you to a bunch of generic jewels and gold. I fucking hate Ongir's endeavor for 2 reasons. The first is because of how glitched it is. Basically, this asshat wants to do an experiment with dwarf shit, so he wants me to get 10 dwarven cogs. The easiest way to get them is to go to the museum in Markarth. If you talk to the court mage, you can get easy access by convincing him, doing a task, or breaking in. Once you do, collect these 10 cogs and return them to Ongir. Even though they're marked as stolen, he still takes them. There are no words for how stupid that is. Next, you talk to Enthyr to get a thing because Ongir is also a baby back bitch like Onmund and gave up before asking to do it for us. We get a warped soul gem from a random place and return it to Bitchmaid number 2. Next, I need to heat the soul gem using 3 dwarven converters using a quest spell. This step is super glitchy, so be careful. After we return the soul gem, Ongir explains to us that this experiment involves recreating the circumstances of the dwarven's disappearance. Next, I need to get another thing that's coming in from Morrowind. What is this thing? It's Keening. Hang on, Bethesda. Where's Sunder and Wraithguard? We need those to make this work. Oh, you're just gonna put it in the Creation Club to sacrifice continuity? Alright. Anyways, even Ongir is surprised we didn't die from wielding it. Yet, 5 minutes later, he starts swinging it like a blind retard. Regardless, we reach the second reason why I despise this quest. Bethesda is ruining their previous game. What made Morrowind a great game was the moral and story ambiguity within its main storyline. One of the biggest mysteries presented was the disappearance of the dwarves. Even when you ask the big bad of the game, Dagoth Ur, even he doesn't know what happened to the dwarves, and Dagoth knows everything. Anyways, we get an enchanted dagger that pays homage to a much better Elder Scrolls game, which without mods becomes completely worthless after a certain number of uses, and a summoning spell that has no magic cost, which is alright. If you want a reusable soul gem for enchanting, rewarding, then the Black Star is the quest for you. From a seemingly running's distance from Winterhold, I found the Shrine of Azura. There, I met a priestess named Arena, the last member of a congregation of dark elves that traveled from Morrowind to Skyrym during the eruption of Red Mountain. Despite the fact that this group was led here by visions granted to them by Azura, who even built this shrine to her for their assured salvation, just gave up and moved on after a couple hundred years of jack shit happening. Despite the fact that this shrine is so close to civilization, the wounds of the Oblivion Crisis still fresh in people's minds, even after 200 years, and that the Nords are xenophobic to most outsiders, especially elves, you'd think this place would have been ransacked by a mob decades ago. Not to mention, there's even a faction of Daedra hunters called the Vigilance of Stendar, another unjoinable group, has apparently done nothing about it. I guess it goes to show how little of a fuck Winterhold, and for the most part, Skyrym, gives about Daedra worship. Anyways, Arena was given a vision of my arrival and that I'm destined to retrieve Azura's star. I am asked to play detective once again to find an Altmer mage named Nelacar. Going to the local inn of Winterhold, the Frozen Hearth, we are given our first impression of Nelacar as he interviews the innkeeper of the establishment regarding the smell of an experiment gone bad. I asked Nelacar about the star, and utilizing Skyrym's vague speech skill system, he gives in. He tells me that he was once the student of a mage named Malin Varen, who was exiled from the college for performing questionable experiments on the students there. Great! Another example of the college being unable to keep their shit together and carry out decisive actions against immoral offenses. His reason for doing so was because he wanted to prolong his life. Upon learning the properties of Azura's star, he was determined to use it as a vessel to achieve immortality. However, the star can only trap white souls, that of animals and other creatures. So somehow, this guy found and acquired the star and supposedly warped it to achieve his goal. Nelacar tells me that Malin and a group of loyal students traveled to a place called Inatalia's Deep. Before I go, he warns me that the Daedra are inherently evil tricksters, and to not return the star to Azura. Despite his past history with Malin, and the fact I told him I was doing this on behalf of a Daedric prince, he opts not to come with me, stop me, or even try to retrieve the star himself. Arriving at the sunken tower near Riverwood, I confront a congregation of other mages, find Malin's remains, the star, and have to make a choice. Give it to Azura or Nelacar. Regardless of your choice, you will be brought into the star to purge Malin from it. I believe the difficulty of this boss is scaled to the player. If you side with Azura, you will get her star, which will only trap the souls of animals, making it useless for the most part, and the priestess as a companion. What a great reward. Siding with Nelacar gives you the Black Star, which can trap the souls of sentient beings. This makes it much more valuable in this state, as not only are sentient enemies more common in Skyrym, black souls are just as powerful as a grand soul gem. Siding with Nelacar will definitely scorn you in the eyes of Azura. I would say based on the fact that Azura turned the entire race of the Chimer into the Dark Elves due to the betrayal of Indril Nerevar's most trusted counsel, and the accounts from stories such as Azura and the Box, it would not be a wise decision. But since this is a Bethesda game, it cannot really back up what the lore is set up in terms of player consequences.
Bloody fucking! Hello, Mart. Hello, bloody fuck!